Welcome to Payoff Pitch, Action Network's Major League Baseball betting podcast. I'm Collin Whitchurch, joined by Sean Zerillo to take a look at Tuesday's MLB slate. We will have our best bets. We'll have our favorite underdogs. Whole bunch of bets we have for you. Sean's got a loaded card today. We do want to touch on, a couple of the games that Sean doesn't have bets on. You'll see how many bets Sean has today, but a couple of the games that really matter as we come down the stretch here. Regular season obviously ending Sunday. Some big matchups with playoff implications. So I did want to get your thoughts, Sean, at the top before we jump into our best bets on a couple of these games. We have Tigers Guardians starting a series in Cleveland. It's Tarek Skubal against Gavin Williams. Cleveland obviously one game behind Detroit now in the AL Central race. They're also in the wild card standings, they're tied with Houston now for the final wild card spot. The Guardians are, and then your Mets in Chicago against the Cubs, fighting for their playoff lives. We have David Peterson and Cade Horton in that matchup on TBS. Mets tied for the last wild card spot with the Reds. So, want to get your thoughts, for folks who are, just looking to bet the marquee matchups on a given day as we come down the stretch. Want to get your thoughts because I know you don't have any firm locked in bets on either of those games, but if there's any leans, if there's price points where you would bet one side or a total on Guardians, Tigers, and Mets, Cubs tonight.
Yeah, Guardians, Tigers. The one bet that looks like it could be in range is Tigers first five. I make that about minus 180. I see a minus 162 out there currently. So definitely that up to about minus 170. Tigers first five could be actionable. Want to see the lineups, obviously, before I lock anything like that in, and want to see umpires for both of these games as well before I'd fire on a total. I do make this game about 6.5 pre-umpire, and the market, I believe, came down from 7 juice to around minus 120, now to 6.5. So I'm not tempted by the over as of yet. If we do get an over-friendly umpire, hitter-friendly umpire, it may push me closer to 7, and I might be interested at 6.5. minus 110. But as of yet, no bet on Tigers Guardians. In terms of Mets Cubs, I also lean over. I could make this total as high as 7.95, but we do have wind and weather in Wrigley today. Action Lab systems triggering for Wrigley Field unders today. Wind blowing in at about 10 miles an hour. It is warm, though. It's about 70 degrees at Wrigley. Both of these offenses are strong. I do think both Horton and Peterson have pitched above their projections, above their heads a little bit at points this year, and I do think both offenses are capable of exploding. So over 7.5 would be the lean for Cubs Mets. Also Cubs the lean as well. I make the Cubs around minus 115. If I got Cubs minus 105, I'd have to jump in there. And as I said, for both of these games, we'll wait for umpires. But the closest bets in terms of being actionable, Tigers first five minus 162. As again, I make that minus 180. Cubs around minus 110. I make that minus 115. I would want minus 105 on Chicago. And then Cubs and Mets over 7.5. We're going to wait for umpires there. It's plus money currently. I probably like it to minus 110 if it's a pitcher or a hitter friendly ump. If it is a neutral ump or a pitcher friendly ump, I'll likely pass.
I do have one bet in Guardians Tigers I'll mention here off the top. I am on Gavin Williams over 1.5 walks tonight. It's heavily juiced minus 175 to the over, but this is one of those bets where if I get anything below minus 200, I'm generally going to take it. Williams has walked 2 batters or more in 24 of 30 starts this year. He's been really good of late from a run prevention standpoint. You look at his starts since the start of August, he's got a 2.1 ERA during that span. But even during that hot stretch, he's still walking more than 2 batters per game in those 9 starts. So I really like Gavin. I think that he's got a good chance, and it's going to be a low-scoring game potentially in Detroit with him and Skubal. He's going to obviously be pitching a lot. I don't want to say more serious or whatever, but that his margin for error is a lot slimmer when he's facing Skubal. I don't know if that changes his mindset, but he's faced Detroit twice this year. He's walked 2 batters in one start, 3 in the other. I don't see any reason that's going to change tonight. So I do like over 1.5 walks for Gavin Williams.
Just want to mention, because we talked about the tiebreakers yesterday, Cleveland also owns the tiebreaker against the Astros. So they own it over the Tigers and they own it over the Astros. In terms of Cleveland making the playoffs from this point, They just need to play neutral with everybody else. They don't need to do anything spectacular. Don't need to finish ahead of anybody by a game. Just need to tie either the Tigers or the Astros, and they get in.
I think that regardless of whether they make the playoffs or not, what I'm going to be watching for in my sick, twisted mind is if they can get to the playoffs with a positive run differential. They've been shaving runs off that for a while. They're currently at -9 run differential. Pagoda actually has their playoff odds up at 63%. So, division is still just 30.6%, but they like them to make the playoffs regardless. Let's jump into our best bets here. We both have some strong favorites. I'm really interested in your best bet because when I was doing my research last night and this morning, I thought about taking the other side as my favorite underdog. Chris Sanchez on the mound for the Phillies tonight. They've got him lined up to start game 1 of the playoffs for them with Zach Wheeler obviously out. I was curious if with the playoffs right around the corner with Sanchez, if they maybe take it easy on him, maybe have him throw a shorter outing. He can obviously throw Sunday if seeding implications matter, and if they have the bye, or he can be held back on Sunday to pitch game 1 of a wild card series. But it looks like it's going to be the bye here. But that was basically my angle, is maybe Sanchez has a little bit of a shorter start today, just as the Phillies don't want anything to happen to him, have him get injured. And I like Eduardo Cabrera on the other side. But you're on the Phillies tonight, and I'm curious if that factors into your handicap at all, or if, the Phillies just have enough value regardless because Sanchez is so good.
No, it doesn't yet. And I think the Phillies still playing for, the bye, still trying to clinch that officially. That just all plays into them, at least trying through at least the next few days. And also, you get that first round bye through the wild card. Like, you want Sanchez extended out today. Maybe his next start, you pull back a little bit and ease off on the pitch count, ease off in the innings. But in terms of his home road splits, I think Chris Sanchez has one of the more drastic differentials in terms of his effectiveness home versus away. You see it in his career numbers. You also see it in his 2025 stats. Career, 2.8 expected FIP at home, 3.5 on the road. Strikeout minus walk, 21% at home, 12% on the road. And it's pretty comparable this year in terms of the differential. So career about a 3/4 of a run difference. Strikeout minus walk about a 9-point difference home versus road. This year, another 9-point difference, 25.4% at home, 16.3% on the road. Strikeout minus walk. And expected FIP, 249 versus 309. So this is something that we discussed last year, something that we've continued to discuss this year, something the Phillies have tried to figure out why Chris Sanchez is so much better at home. They think it's something to do with the mound height and the way that his arm angles off on the mound at the bank compared to other parks where he's not getting the same effect. We've discussed the A's mound at Sutter Health Park this year and it potentially not being up to major league quality. Well, there is a difference in mound heights across all 30 major league parks. It's very subtle from one park to the next, but the difference between the highest and the lowest mound is actually fairly dramatic. I'm actually not sure where the bank falls on that scale of mounds, if it is the higher side or the lower side. But regardless, it does seem like Christopher Sanchez's pitches gain a little bit of extra bite when he's at home. So you see the big difference in the home road splits. I tend to trust him at home. I tend to look to target Phillies overs when Sanchez is pitching on the road because I think he's a little bit more gettable. And then more importantly here, the Phillies coming in with a well-rested bullpen. Since the deadline, just 14th in expected FIP, but 8th in strikeout minus walk, 8th in pitching plus. The Marlins 26th, 25th, and 19th over the same span by bullpen metrics. And the last thing I want to point out too, Sanchez obviously keeps the ball on the ground a ton, one of the highest ground ball rates in the league. No Trey Turner at the moment. Turner has been a very bad defensive shortstop over the past 2 years, minus 13 defensive runs saved in 256 games. Edmundo Sosa currently playing shortstop for the Phillies. He's an above average defensive shortstop, +3 DRS in 63 games at short over the past 2 seasons. So Phillies, the better defensive team in my model, not necessarily in the season-long metrics. You'll see the Marlins ahead of them on season-long numbers. The Phillies actually have like a 4% projected implied win probability defensive edge in my model. On top of Sanchez being the better pitcher, them having an equivalent or better offense, and having a well-rested bullpen tonight. So the last thing too, I actually looked this up this morning because it's something that we talk about come playoff time. The last 5 years, the Bank has been the third most profitable park in terms of home teams. Rockies 5.3% ROI at home. I have SE written down. I don't know who that was supposed to be. I don't know if that's Padres or Giants, but there's another team above the Phillies, and then the Phillies are at 3.7%, Dodgers at 2.3%. So Phillies do tend to play a little bit better than the market expects at home as well. Sanchez pitching better than you expect at home. There's a lot of reasons to like the Phillies tonight. I make them about minus 255 and would bet them up to minus 233.
I know you don't think of it this way. There's no points for second place, but it was a nice call from you in the preseason with that Chris Sanchez NL Cy Young ticket you had. Obviously, he's going to finish second to Paul Skeens. It's pretty much a given at this point.
I have Logan Webb too, so I don't know if I get anything for finishing second and third in the Cy Young.
Second and third, yeah. But Sanchez particular was a nice call because that was everyone knows Logan Webb was an ace coming into the season. Sanchez was kind of a breakout pick for a lot of people. I don't think a lot of people expected him to be the best pitcher on the Phillies, even with a healthy Zach Wheeler. He's arguably the best pitcher on the Phillies, and he has been. Unfortunately, that ticket won't get to the window, but it was a nice call regardless. It shows sharp analysis. So no points for second place, but you deserve some credit there regardless.
We'll get that Schwarber 50-1 RBI leader ticket home. That'll be our Phillies W for the year.
There we go. My best bet, I'm going with another favorite here. I'm going with the Dodgers on the money line against the Diamondbacks tonight. Shohei Ohtani against Brandon Pfaadt. I'm just wondering if people are going to be fooled into believing that Brandon Pfaadt's a good pitcher again after he threw 9 shutout against the Giants last week. He shows flashes from time to time, but this is just an increasingly below average pitcher. That playoff run from a couple of years ago now is looking more and more like a mirage. Pfaadt gave up 4 runs in 4 1/3 innings against the Dodgers last month. The Dodgers lost to the Giants on Sunday, but I think this offense is really starting to click. Nobody's really talking about them heading into October, which is hilarious. They might be a team I end up buying at a discount as they are going into the postseason with the rotation mostly intact. We might get a nice price on the Dodgers for the pennant or the World Series since they'll be playing in the wild card round more than likely. It's easy to forget at this point because of all the Dodgers warts this season, but last offseason, people were talking about if the Dodgers were unfair for baseball because they were spending all this money and buying all these players. And now here they are, barely going to crack 90 wins. So, but their offense is really starting to round into form. Mookie Betts is finally starting to show some signs of life this month. And most importantly, and I don't think we've ever said this before in October, even last year when they won the World Series, their rotation is going to enter October healthy. Ohtani's back, Glasnow, Snell, Yamamoto, obviously. They've got a lot of depth there. So I'm really bullish on the Dodgers. We'll talk about that more in our playoff preview episode next week. But as far as today, the Diamondbacks are 1 game out of the NL wildcard spot. It's really funny. You can't say that the Diamondbacks are doing like the Tigers did last year where they sell and then surge toward the playoffs because last year's Tigers team actually surged. These Diamondbacks are just kind of hovered a little over 500 while the Mets fell back toward them. But they're facing Ohtani today. He's starting to round into form on the mound. Dodgers are getting those pitch counts up in the 80s. I think he's going to be fully unleashed in October. I think he mows through this Diamondbacks lineup today. It's a really subpar lineup since they traded Naylor, since they traded Suarez. They've got Carroll, Perdomo, basically the only guys hitting for them right now. And I just was surprised to see the Dodgers as short of favorites as they were. I thought they'd be up closer to where the Phillies are today, but the Diamondbacks obviously fighting for their playoff lives, have some juice. I'm just not buying it. So I like the Dodgers on the money line today at minus 155. Probably minus 160 to minus 170 range would be my cutoff there. Any thoughts on Dodgers Diamondbacks before we move on?
No, I think your point, though, about Arizona, Cincinnati kind of catching up because the Mets went in reverse as opposed to them accelerating. It's like when you see the people movers at the airport, you got a bunch of people walking alongside of it. Well, the Mets got on going the wrong direction, and they're trying to sprint moving forward, but can't quite get anywhere, and the people walking alongside of it have caught up to them. So, yeah, it's been an absolute collapse for the Mets. I believe they have the second worst record in baseball over the past 2 months, an absolute disaster and collapse, and it's going to be pretty embarrassing if they do end up missing. We went through it yesterday, but I mean, the pitching matchups over the next week, pretty tough. Cade Horton, Matt Boyd, Shota Managa, Yuri Perez, and Sandy Alcantara over the next 5 days. The Marlins specifically backed up Sandy to ensure that he would face the Mets over the final series of the season. So I'm glad that their divisional rivals are doing everything that they can to ensure that this record-setting free agent spending does not make the playoffs.
This certainly isn't true anymore because this team's lost several games in a row. But a week or two ago, I looked it up, and the Mets hit their high water mark from a above 500 standpoint on like June 14th, something like that. There were 20 games over 500, and since that date, they have the same record as the White Sox. That was true like a week or two ago. So, speaking of my Chicago White Sox, let's move on to our favorite underdogs. I'm going to sit this one out basically because I'm echoing everything you're about to say. You have 2 underdog picks you like today. Talking about my White Sox on the road against the Yankees, who are still chasing the Blue Jays for the AL East crown. I believe 2 games back entering play today. They are 3 up on the Red Sox, so it looks like they're going to they're more than likely going to be the number 1 wild card team in the American League. And then we have Minnesota in a game that doesn't matter for anyone because the Rangers have completely fallen out of it. Minnesota in Texas, and you have a couple underdog picks here as well as a total.
Yeah, White Sox, Yankees. First off, Shane Smith ended up being the White Sox best pitcher this season. Now, projections still have him around a number 4 starter, but when you look at the projections between Smith and Luis Gil, they're very comparable. Gil's average FIP projection, 4.3. Shane Smith's average FIP projection, 4.4. So right in line with each other. And Smith actually has started to use his fastballs a little bit more as the season has gone on. Through July, I believe his fastball rate, combined fastball sinker, around 50%. Last 2 months, pushing closer to 65%. His changeup has gone down from 20% to 12%. The changeup was his bread and butter, was considered his best pitch. It was the reason why the White Sox took him in that Rule 5 draft. He's actually started to move away from it a little bit and throw fastballs more frequently, and he's still been just as effective. So I like to see Shane Smith sort of mixing up the pitch mix, not letting guys sit on that changeup, going a little bit more aggressively at them with the fastballs. Opponents adjusted, he adjusted right back. White Sox offense has been super enjoyable to watch. You could speak to this more so than I can. I'm sure this has been the most enjoyable White Sox team you've watched since they were in their peak with the Luis Robert and Yohan Moncada and Lucas Giolito team, Dylan Cease. Like, this has been the most enjoyable White Sox run these past couple months you've had in quite a bit. Bet on them the other day against the Pods. As I said, they went 0 for 11 runners in scoring position, stranded 11 runners, but every single inning, first and second, no out. Couldn't quite get the runners home, but the process was enjoyable to watch. They were consistently working deep counts, finding ways to get on base, just couldn't quite get that one hit to catch the runners in and take the lead. Now, obviously, Luis Gil has better stuff than Smith, 101 versus 95 stuff plus, but he has much lesser command. And I do think this White Sox offense, which has been patient, is going to be able to take advantage of Gil's wildness tonight. So White Sox, make them about plus 175, like them down to plus 190. And then I haven't looked at the number. I would imagine the total might be 2.5 juiced or 3.5 at plus money, but Luis Gil over walks, I would imagine, has to be a look tonight as well, alongside the White Sox money line or alongside the White Sox first 5 money line. Even it's just how they're going to get on base, how they're going to score runs tonight is forcing Gil to throw pitches, be a little bit wild, and get on base. So White Sox down to plus 175, one of my favorite underdogs for tonight. And then the other one I bet late last night, there were 3 games where a line had not been released yet. And then the Twins-Rangers line came out a little bit later. Zebby Matthews against Patrick Corbin here. I'm still pretty high on Zebby. I know his ERA is around 6 this season, but his expected ERA is 4.7. His expected FIP is 385. Again, a 385 expected FIP, 2 full runs lower than his actual ERA. And that's where FIP projections put him. His FIP projections are between 3.8 and 4.5, but an average of 4.01, 3.81 from Oopsie, which factors in pitch modeling metrics. So if you follow pitch modeling metrics, if you believe what is coming out of Zebby Matthews' hand, he should be much better than he has been to date. And on the other end, Patrick Corbin, he started out well this year, had some pitch modifications to his arsenal. Through July, a 3.8 ERA, 4.1 expected FIP, 13% strikeout minus walk. Well, the last 2 months, I think the league has finally figured out Patrick Corbin's new mix. ERA of 6, expected FIP has gone up from 4.1 to 4.4, strikeout minus walk gone down from 13% to 9%. Minnesota, too, just comparing like these offenses head to head, the bullpens head to head. Texas has had a lot of injuries. And even though the Twins traded away everybody at the deadline, Twins actually have the better offense over the past 2 weeks. And the bullpens over the past 30 days are extremely comparable as well. Texas is a slight bullpen edge, but that is the only advantage I see for them in this game, aside from defense. I make the Twins about plus 103, would bet them down to plus 110. And I also like the under here, under 8.5 up to about minus 120.
I'm on Zebby Matthews' strikeout over today. I agree with you. I'm still very bullish on him. He's had some blow-ups lately. He gave up 9 runs in 3 innings against the Yankees his last time out. Rangers aren't the most strikeout-prone team in the league, but 4.5 at about minus 115 seems like a good number to get the over here. He struck out exactly 5 last 2 starts before that Yankee start against the Angels and the White Sox. He's gone over 4.5 in 10 of his 15 starts so far this season. So I think that we're getting a good buy low spot on Zebby here from a strikeout perspective. And the Luis Heel walk number that you were curious about, you can get over 2.5 at plus 150. Any interest there?
I like that a lot. Yep, I'll be betting that for sure.
Over 2.5 walks for Luis Heel. Plus 250. That's a nice spot for us. Speaking of, you set me up to just force me to talk about the White Sox a little bit. And the funny thing the White Sox community has been talking about this year, they're going to lose about 100 games again this year. They're going to be about a 20-game improvement. But the funny thing about this phase of the rebuild is it's completely different from the last phase. The last time they rebuilt, they went star hunting. They brought in all these top prospects, the Moncadas, the Eloys, the Roberts, and this year, and the reason that failed is because they had no depth. This rebuild's different. They're getting all the depth pieces. I don't know if there's a future star on this roster or even in the farm. They've called up most of their close to major league ready bats. Their arms have kind of stalled out in the upper minors, Noah Schultz and Hagen Smith, but they have major league contributors on the roster now. Edgar Caro, Kyle Teal, Chase Mydroth, Lenin Sosa. Colson Montgomery is probably the closest thing they have to a future star on the team. I don't know if he'll get there with, the amount of swing and miss he has in his bat, but that dude has raw, like, I want to see him in the home run derby next year. Like, that dude has such insane raw power. But that's going to be the question, right? Is they brought in a whole bunch of the coaching staff from the Brewers. They're trying to follow that Brewers model, which is one of the better models you can try to follow at this point. You look at the Brewers, they're going to win close to 100 games, and they have, who's their leader in WAR on that team? Is it Isaac Collins? I couldn't even tell you. Jackson Churio,
probably Yelich, but I can't tell you offhand.
Yeah. Exactly. That's kind of the point, right? Jackson Churio maybe is the closest thing they have to a future star. Kind of stalled out this year.
People don't realize Churio missed like a pretty significant chunk of the season, and they like seemingly got better when he went out. The Brewers are unbelievable, and I don't know, maybe one of the number one seeds that people have been sleeping on most, I'd say, in recent history. Bryce Terang, by the way, 4.1 WAR is their leader.
There you go. Yeah. So that's the model that they're following. It'll be interesting to see if it works out. Not a lot of reason to be super optimistic about this team until more changes, but they've looked up this year. I'm watching games in September. That's a feat in itself, right? And not just to see if they're setting losing records like they did last year. But
there's always the year before a team gets interesting where they start to be a little bit exciting. And as a fan, it's enjoyable to watch them. I always think back to like the year Jose Reyes came up with the Mets and David Wright shortly followed. And it's like, okay, you could see the building blocks forming. And then all of a sudden you go from a 70-win team to a 90-win team. And you're like, this is it. Like now we have a window where we're competitive. So yeah, that's always a fun time, is like the end of a bad season that is actually enjoyable to watch is usually a good indicator for the following year. And hey, I mean, the White Sox made a 21 improvement this year. Like, I don't know how much they're capable of improving off of this next year, but it's certainly finally something that's trending in the right direction. And like you said, at least it's enjoyable to watch at the bare minimum.
It brings me so much joy anytime we can turn this podcast into a little mini White Sox podcast for a couple minutes. I know our producers love it, and I know our listeners definitely love it. But
who's the
White
Sox WAR leader? Who would you say is the White Sox WAR leader offhand?
Colson Montgomery was up there after. I don't know if he's gotten there. I looked at this recently.
He and Teal are tied at 2. Chase Mydroff has 1.9.
Yeah.
So
for a while,
you got a bunch of above average players now, which is nice.
Yeah. I think the actual leader is still Adrian Hauser, hilariously. And Mike Vassell in the bullpen's been really good as well.
So Hauser finished at 1.7. Shane Smith also at 1.7. So Hauser was surpassed, but he's still the pitching leader. Shane Smith can pass him today.
Love it. Shane Smith, speaking of those Brewers, that's who they got him from. The Brewers were so pitching rich that they exposed Shane Smith to the Rule 5 draft. That's why he's in Chicago. But before we move on, want to remind everyone, don't forget to sign up for Action Pro if you want real-time pick alerts from experts like Sean Zerillo, Derek Carty, and our entire Action Network team. Plus, you can access our pro projections powered by Sean Kerner and our predictive analytics team. All you have to do is go to actionnetwork.com/pro, and you can get $20 off the annual price with the promo code PAYOFF20. So don't miss out on the best bets at the best prices. Visit actionnetwork.com/pro. Use promo code PAYOFF20 to get $20 off a year of Action Pro. All right, final bets time. Sean, you have a lot, and I'm very excited to hear about them. I want to go first to this game between the Blue Jays and Red Sox, which is a big game for both teams, a lot bigger for Boston than it is for Toronto, but Toronto trying to hold on to that AL East lead. Red Sox just trying to hang on to a playoff spot at this point. Lucas Giolito against Kevin Gausman. This is another spot where when I was doing my research, I was like, I kind of like Boston as an underdog here, but you're on the other side, and I ended up ultimately staying away from this game, so I'm curious why you're on the Blue Jays today.
Yeah, as you mentioned, important for both teams. Jays' magic number is 4 to clinch the AL East. The Red Sox magic number is 5 to make the AL wild card. Big difference for me between Giolito and Gausman. I think you can see it pretty clearly in the underlying indicators, but Gausman, 8% better strikeout minus walk, 10 points better pitching plus, 102 versus 92. Body array, run and a half better, 336 versus 4.8. And then FIP projections, he's anywhere from a half run to 1.2 runs better than Giolito. Big defensive advantage for me for Toronto in this matchup. They're the number one defensive team in my model. They are worth about their defense is worth about 5% per game in terms of implied win probability over an average team. Over the Red Sox, it's still probably worth close to about 3%. So like double home field advantage is worth, is what the Jays defensive advantage is worth against most teams. Both top 5 teams on the year in terms of defensive metrics. It's just as of right now with current lineups, definitely view the Jays as a very strong defensive team. Bo Bichette, not the best defensive shortstop, a little bit of an upgrade defensively at shortstop without him in there. So Toronto offense project better. I mean, Roman Anthony, the Red Sox have performed about average without him, a 98 WRC plus without Roman. Jays a 111, even without Bo Bichette. So definitely prefer Toronto's lineup, prefer their starting pitcher, prefer them defensively. I think the bullpens is the one area where the Red Sox could potentially catch up to and play even with them over the final 4 innings of this game. But I make the Jays about minus 200. I would bet them up to minus 180 compared to a listed price of minus 160 last night. And it's alongside the Phillies. One of my favorites for today, one of my bigger projected edges on this slate. Obviously, 2 teams fighting for something. And the Red Sox, as you said, have a little bit more to play for. But as a result, I do think the Jays are a bit undervalued with Giolito on the mound.
Giolito actually just hit a innings threshold that makes his he had a vesting option for next year that turns into a mutual
nice.
option now. So he just his last start hit that. He's going to be a free agent after this year. He's going to decline the mutual option surely because he's been healthy and effective this year. Going to be interesting to see what he gets on the free agent market. If he doesn't get more money than that vesting option, he's certainly going to get more years. So a couple big starts for him down the stretch and potentially in the playoffs in terms
He feels like a Tampa Bay Ray to me.
Man, that is, yeah. But yeah, the free agent pitching market, he'll be joining Framber Valdez, Ranger Suarez, Dylan Cease, Michael King potentially. Interesting mix of pitchers available this off season. Let's move on to Royals Angels. Cole Reagan's back on the mound against Sam Aldeguerri. I have a player prop on this game. I'll let you go first, though, on the side you like here with Reagan's making his second start returning from injury.
Yeah, need to keep an eye on lineups here because the Royals' tragic number is 1. So there's a potential that the Royals are eliminated by the time that this game starts tonight and just go, hey, we're not going to play Salvi, we're not going to play Bobby Witt, our season's over. They do need to win to stay alive. And if, those games have not ended by the time their game starts, starting lineup, they'll play focus through tonight. And then tomorrow, likely play the B guys. And they are starting Cole Reagan's tonight, who only threw 62 pitches in his last outing. But what I did like to see, the velocity back in line with pre-injury levels, 95.7. He's at 95.3 on the season. Stuff plus, 120 versus 109 on the season. And bot ERA, 310 versus 398 on the season. So no concerns about Reagan's post-injury. 62 pitches last outing should push closer to about 80 pitches tonight. You mentioned Sam Aldeguerri does not project well at all, but hasn't thrown more than 2 innings in an outing. But yeah, his FIP projection is between 516 and 566. So he is very much a sub-replacement level starter. 88 stuff plus, 73 pitching plus, minus 4% strikeout minus walk in his limited major league sample. But regardless of Aldeguerri, even if it's a bullpen game for the Angels, still prefer the Royals bullpen. 19th in expected FIP versus 25th for the Angels over the last 30 days. KC is the better lineup. The Angels have really fallen off. They were hitting well for quite a bit. They've really fallen off. Past month, they're 29th WRC plus, 73 WRC plus overall. And the Royals are the much better defensive team as well. 4th and 7th, respectively, by OAA and DRS. The Angels 30th and 28th, maybe the worst defensive team in baseball. The Athletics certainly down there too. So I make KC about minus 175 on the road tonight, like them up to minus 160. But just as I said, keep an eye on the Guardians-Tigers game and on the Red Sox and Jays games. If the Red Sox win, if the Guardians win, the Royals are eliminated and have no incentive to win tonight or to play their starters. Again, I'd imagine they will announce their regular starting lineup and actually play through tonight. But as of tomorrow, it's very likely that you see a Royals B lineup on Wednesday.
Sam Aldeguerri, the interesting thing about him is he's the 9th major league player born in Italy. Looking up these random fun facts about guys.
Italy needs more WBC arms, so that's a fun debutant. Hey, Sal Frelick, we talked about the Brewers before. Sal Frelick has like 3.7 WAR this season, so he's going to be a star for Team Italy. Italy may have some interesting dude. Pasquantino having a breakout year.
I think there's a lot of Italian Americans, but like apparently Chase Burns was born in Italy also, but that was stationed in Italy, a military thing. But the last player before Burns and Aldeguerri, the last major leaguer born in Italy was Alex Liddy. If you remember that short-lived utility player who played from 2011 to 13. I actually have a bet on this game as well. Cole Reagan's, as you mentioned, his first start back from injury didn't go great. The Royals let him throw 62 pitches. He gave up 2 runs in 3 2/3 innings with 2 walks and 4 strikeouts. And I was kind of surprised to see his K total up there today. It's 6.5 right now. I think the Royals are probably going to be cautious with him down the stretch, make sure that he's fully ready to go for the start of 2026 season. So I'm on the under on Cole Reagan strikeouts. I agree with you. I like the Royals on the money line. If I were to bet a side tonight, it would definitely be on Kansas City. But in terms of a prop, I think Reagan's K total is just far too high, considering the uncertainty with him coming back from injury and the fact that, as you mentioned, the Royals might fully not have anything to play for. And even if they do, it's, a very slim chance. And they're not going to take any chances with their 2026 ace on the 1% chance they have of still reaching October or whatever it is. Let's move on to the Athletics, those Sacramento Athletics. They are at home tonight against the Astros, who are clinging to their playoff lives as well, trying to hold off Cleveland. Their AL West hopes have likely died. They've been battling injuries after injuries. Jordan Alvarez is out again. And this game's kind of a coin flip tonight in Christian Javier against Jeffrey Springs.
Yeah, the A's have quietly been playing really well. 13-11 in July, 15-12 in August, 10-8 in September. So 28, 38 and 40, 38 and 41. I did that math wrong. 48 and 41 over the past 3 months. That's like wild card contender level of play, right? That type of record. And the A's, or the Astros, obviously, no Yordan Alvarez. They've fallen off offensively. Last 30 days, 20th in WRC+. A's 13th, 103 versus 91 WRC+. Astros 22nd since the trade deadline, 92 WRC+. Bullpen's last 30 days. Houston 24th in expected FIP, 12th in strikeout minus walk. Athletics 17th in expected FIP, 14th in strikeout minus walk. And the A's have the better pitch modeling metrics too, in their bullpen 17th versus 24th. So no Hader, no Yordan. Astros bullpen potentially fatiguing after getting used a lot this year because they've sustained so many starting pitching injuries. They've had to throw a substantial number of innings from their bullpen. Christian Javier has actually been a little bit better recently. I think he's finally rounded into form. You look at the strikeouts and walks in his recent starts. But the pitch modeling metrics are still not great, and his velo is still down compared to previous seasons. And we've seen with Javier, who is very fastball reliant, and it's like a deceptive fastball too. It's just the characteristics of it this year are not as good as they have been in previous years. So I'm still a little bit down on Christian Javier. And when you combine that with the Astros declining bullpen with a below average offense, I make the Athletics about minus 130 here. I almost said the O word. I was very close to saying it.
Ooh.
Athletics about minus 130 here. We can bet them up to minus 120 in West Sacramento tonight. And hopefully they can close out this second half with an above 500 record. It's 32 and 26 in the second half since the All-Star break. Again, 552 winning percentage. That is a wild card level pace that the A's have played at over the past couple months. They figured out their bullpen, and their lineup is just very potent. Wilson back in there now, plus you have the three guys with 30 home runs. Like it's a very dangerous offense. They clearly have a better offense than Astros. It just comes down to their bullpens and Springs, and whether Springs can match Javier, and I think he's capable of doing that. So A's to minus 120 tonight.
Yeah, 552. Just for comparison's sake, the Padres are at 548 for the full season. Yeah. So yes, that's for sure a playoff team, playoff contender.
89 win pace. Yep.
Yeah. Speaking of the Padres, my last bet of the slate, and one you're on as well, and I'm curious to hear your reasoning, is the under here in San Diego against Milwaukee. It's actually a hilarious pitching matchup. It's Bruce Zimmerman against Randy Vasquez. Did not know Bruce Zimmerman was still in organized baseball, let alone with an opportunity to make a major league appearance. If you're not familiar with Bruce Zimmerman, he was a very bad pitcher for the Orioles earlier this decade. Making a spot start here for the Brewers. The Brewers, by the way, I had this up earlier. Let me bring it up real quick. All the talk all season has been about the Brewers' pitching depth. They just had pitchers after pitchers, like Logan Henderson couldn't even make this rotation. Now they're entering October really banged up. Henderson, I just mentioned, is hurt. Quintana's now hurt. Brandon Woodruff just went on the IL, and in their bullpen, DL Hall, Trevor McGill being the biggest injury in that bullpen. Shelby Miller, who they acquired at the deadline, is still out. So their depth is being tested here a little bit. Eric Fetty's on this team, which is just baffling to me. They got Zimmerman, as we mentioned, making a spot start. what the rotation is going to look like come October behind Freddie Peralta, how they mix and match guys like Quinn Priester, when they start Jacob Mizorowski, Chad Patrick, Robert Gasser, Tobias Myers. There's a lot of arms there. How Pat Murphy pulls the strings with these guys is just going to be absolutely crucial to their success. He's done a great job all season. October's a different animal. We'll see what happens. But despite this ugly, ugly pitching matchup, Randy Vasquez being one of the worst starting pitchers in baseball this year, you and I are both on the under here. My angle here is simple. Padres clinched the playoff spot last night. It's going to be their hangover lineup. The Brewers don't really have anything to play for anymore. They're still kind of clinging to that number one spot. It'll be interesting to see how hard they push their starters down the stretch here. So it's as simple as that. It's a vibes thing for me. I don't have the spreadsheets and the data like you do. I wonder what your numbers spit out, but the hangover day for the Padres, the Brewers with not that much to play for, I'm on the under here at 8.5.
Yeah, no, I'm joining you. I make this 7.8, so I like the under 8.5 to about minus 120, even under 8 at even money. As you mentioned, hangover game for the Padres. Tatis was also out sick yesterday for the Padres as well and didn't end up playing. I would imagine they just give him tonight off too. Manny Machado and Tatis FaceTiming across the locker room from one another last night as they were drinking, which was very enjoyable. But yeah, I mean, the Brewers went really hard partying on Sunday. Christian Yelich was quite drunk doing his post-game interviews, ended up being in the lineup yesterday. So, maybe the Padres, I mean, listen, you only have 5 guys on your bench. There's only so much of a big lineup you could play, right? So some starters still have to play. But I would imagine no Tatis, no Machado, maybe no Jackson Merrill tonight for the Pods. Yeah, I make this, I said 7.8, so under 8.5 to minus 118. And also, you mentioned Randy Vasquez, one of the worst starters in baseball. His command has actually been improving since the trade deadline. 2 walks and 5 appearances for Randy Vasquez. Location plus has gone up from 101 to 106. 101 stuff plus, 3.6 bot ERA over that span. He's always been a good pitch modeling guy. The command piece has just never been there. And the last few times I've run the model, my number for Vasquez keeps getting lower because his command keeps getting better. So I'm wondering if this is potentially a Randy Vasquez breakout as we approach the postseason. That would be huge for the Padres' playoff chances if Vasquez is going to be a viable number 4 starter for them, or at least give them some depth in the event that Michael King gets hurt. So yeah, keep a close eye on Randy Vasquez. I've been waiting for the breakout for a very long time because the stuff is there. The command has just never come along. It seems like there's a chance it might finally be coming together for him at the end of 2025.
Be interesting indeed. Got a couple more totals you want to give out. I'll let you touch on them briefly. We'll mention here it is Rays, Orioles. You're on a total. Pirates, Reds. One of the more interesting games just from a Cincinnati standpoint as they're chasing the Mets, or tied with the Mets now for that last wild card spot. And then Nationals, Braves. I get these crushes on these young arms, and I think my favorite of the bunch right now might be Hurston Waldrop starting today for the Braves. Got to mention, as you're going to talk Nationals, Braves, about my Chris Sale's going to throw a no-hitter take yesterday. Got spoiled on the first batter of the game. Not just a hit. I lose all of those bets if someone gets on base in the first inning. And it wasn't just that. Leadoff home run by a quad A nobody off Chris Sale. Hilariously bad take from me. It was yucking it up on Twitter with Brandon Anderson. Mentioned that's very much his type of bet in the NFL realm. He's gotten off to a pretty rough start to this season. And when that happened, he said, yeah, you really did pull me, not just in the sense that you made this kind of bet, but that it lost in horrific fashion. So, but yes, Rays, Orioles, Pirates, Reds, and Nationals, Braves, a trio of totals that you want to talk about before we get out of here.
Yeah, trio of overs. So Braves and Rays, or Orioles Rays was the first of these 3 that I fired. My biggest projected edge on a total as of last night. I make this about 9.5, so I bet over 8.5 at minus 120. I like it up to 9 at minus 110. Going to be pretty humid in Baltimore tonight. 80+% humidity at game time. and the wind's going to be blowing out to left center field at about 6 miles an hour. So I would make this total closer to 8.5 on a weather neutral day. I think you can bump it up about 10%, closer to 9.5 tonight with the wind and the weather. So Rays and Orioles over 8.5 to 9 minus 110. Pirates and Reds, I like the over 8.5 at even money up to minus 120. I make this about 9.25. Now, both of these offenses have been struggling. Reds 22nd, Pirates 28th over the last 30 days. But I just think this number is too low for Great American Ballpark. Weather neutral tonight, 77 degrees, wind swirling, only 2 to 3 miles an hour, though, so really no impact. Last 3 years, so 23, 24, 25, rolling 3-year average. This is a plus 6% park for run scoring, which is 4th best at MLB. It's actually been neutral this year, and I just think that is an outlier and some negative variance from 2022 to 2024, plus 10%, 3rd best park in MLB, 4% higher than it's played, or 10% higher than it's played this year, 4% higher than it's played over the past 3 years combined. So that is what this park is, Great American Ballpark. It actually projects closer to like 15% above the major league average, 14, 15%. That's roughly where I have it tonight, about 13% above a league average park, which gets me closer to 9.3. Over 8.5 there to minus 120. Could even take over 9 at even money, would just prefer the 8.5. And then lastly, Nationals and Braves. I know you said you like Waldrop. I do too. He got off to a very hard start. I was betting him consistently, but he's given up 11 runs in his last 2 outings. He gave up 3 in 5 innings against the Nationals. And frankly, his performance over that past month is much more in line with his projections. His projected FIP range is between 4.18, 418, and 436. He's run a 4.2 expected FIP over his past 5 starts. You see the expected ERA around 3.7. If you give a bigger sample of expected FIP, it's around 3.7. So I do think he's better than that level. I expect him to improve into a sub-4 pitcher next year, but maybe after a long season, a lot of innings in the minors, now coming up to the majors, potentially fatiguing, and the expected FIP has come back in line with expectations. League average pitcher, Brad Lord, very similarly too. I was betting on Lord a bunch when he first came up. He's a guy I think is one of the Nationals' better arms in their system. Cavalli, Lord, Mackenzie Gore, I think all have talent, but have all shown a little bit of hiccups and up and down performances. Lord, last 5 starts, 4.5 expected FIP, projected FIP range between 4.2 and 451. So 82 degrees in Atlanta tonight, very light wind, similar to Cincinnati, where I don't really see a weather impact on this game. Make this 9.7, bet over 9 and minus 118. The last piece here, both of these bullpens are terrible. Last 30 days, or since the deadline, actually, Atlanta 25th in expected FIP, 20th strikeout minus walk. The Nationals 27th and 25th, respectively. So both starters around league average arms to me. Waldrop obviously has some upside beyond that. So does Lord. But 2 bad bullpens. I think this game gets to 9 runs late. So over 9 to minus 118. I make this closer to 9.7.
Yeah, that fatigue factor with Waldrop is exactly why I didn't fire on his strikeout total. Seemed like a very big trap. You know, this is the second straight start against the Nationals. He struck out 8 in just 5 innings against the Nationals last time out. Now we're getting his K prop at 5.5 with the over at plus money. But he's north of 140 innings this year between the majors and minors. Last year he threw 93 between the majors and minors. He hadn't thrown more than 100 innings since his junior year at Florida. So
I was going to say before that he was in college, so
yeah.
he hasn't extended out this far, yeah.
Exactly. But that'll do it for today's episode of Payoff Pitch. Thanks for tuning in. If you'd like to tail some of the bets from today's episode, look for the quick slip links in the episode description or visit actionnetwork.com/betnow. Don't forget to download the free award-winning Action Network app. Also, don't forget to leave us a 5-star rating and review wherever you listen to the podcast. Also, check out our new AI quick slip bot on X. Just tag Playbook at Playbook. Tell it to grab whatever bets you're looking for. It'll create a quick slip link for you in a matter of seconds. Just go on there, say, hey, Playbook, give me a bet slip of Colin and Sean's best bets today. Phillies money line, Dodgers money line. It'll spit it right out for you. You can parlay them if you want, bet them separately. Do your thing with it. We will be back on Friday for more MLB Best Bets. It'll be myself and Derek Carty, our last episode of the regular season. As a reminder, you didn't tune in yesterday, next week with the start of October, we will be with you Monday through Friday. Every Monday through Friday day that has a playoff game, we will be with you, including Monday, previewing the playoffs as a whole. Might have a special guest, might have a returning guest, former Payoff pitch contributor on that episode as well as a little teaser. But yes, very excited to jump into October with you, place some bets, hopefully hit some winners. For Sean Zerillo, I'm Collin Whitchurch. Thanks for listening to Payoff Pitch, Action Network's MLB betting podcast. Good luck with all your bets.